Did you know we have a thriving global community of like-minded ancestral home cooks and homesteaders? Every day on our Discord forum, we are discussing what we're cooking, what we're growing, what we're thinking about, what our latest struggles are, and supporting each other to fully embrace this beautiful lifestyle. As a patron member, you can also choose to access an extra private podcast feed, which includes monthly intimate chats where Andrea and I talk in depth about what's happening in our lives and kitchens. There are over 90 recordings waiting for you there right now. In addition, we've got a massive collection of inspiring and helpful downloads for you, including many recipes and videos. And once a month, you'll get to visit with myself, Andrea, and the community as we come together live and in person. Visit ancestralkitchenpodcast.com for all the details on how to join us. Come be part of our world and change yours. Back in episode 117, we gave you 26 nuggets of ancestral wisdom. We've got more, another 24 to be precise. And just because these are in this second episode doesn't mean they are any less important. Over the next hour, Andrea and I, on opposite sides of the Atlantic with cups of tea in our hands, will be channeling our great-grandma wisdom and bringing you some ancestral truths relating to food, creativity, family, health, work, and life.
Welcome to the Ancestral Kitchen Podcast.
I'm Alison, a European town dweller living in England.
And I'm Andrea, living on a family farm in Northwest Washington State, USA.
Pull up a chair at the table and join us as we talk about eating, cooking, and living with ancestral food wisdom in a modern world kitchen.
Good afternoon, Alison. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Good morning to you, because it's morning your time, isn't it? Is it light yet where you are?
It is. No, it is not.
No? Oh, it's dark. Okay. Well,
no light.
Good morning. In the
Yeah,
dark.
but that's okay.
How are you?
It'll be light for me by the time it's dark for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good.
Between. Good.
And did you eat before we got together, or are you going to pass out?
Yeah. I had some lunch. So just about had some lunch, and we've had a few technical problems recording this episode, but I'm here, and I was saying before the internet went dodgy, that I just about managed to have some lunch because we've moved house and I'm trying to sort all the admin out. Anyone who's moved house, who's listening, knows how much admin it comes with. And I was on the phone to our electricity supplier, but then Rob took over the phone call so I could eat, which was kind of him.
Oh, good.
Yes, we had leftovers, which we cooked yesterday. Minced beef, so ground beef for you, with the usual kind of celery and onions. And then we had some kale and a bit of sweet potato, all done in the cast iron pan yesterday. And I think we put rosemary and thyme in it. And then just heated that up for dinner today, and then the end of a sourdough bread, which was mostly spelt, a little bit of rye, which we toasted. I had olive oil on mine, and then we had some Brussels sprouts, extra greens, because the Brussels sprouts have just started coming in here, and they are my favourite vegetable. So I'm really happy to see all the stalks at the market. So we steamed those, had them on the side, and yeah, it was lovely. Very, very nice. And I now have an oat straw tea.
Eat them while you can.
I have an oat straw tea with me to get me through this episode.
Ooh.
How about you? Have you had some breakfast yet this morning?
Yeah, I did. No breakfast, but I have tea. And then I had last night for dinner a very simple dinner where my sister and we go to the same church together, and all of our families are involved in the music and everything. So we spend a long day at church. And then once a month we get together afterwards, alternating between her house and mine for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that this month's feast was going to be spaghetti sauce and noodles. And I had gluten-free ones. And we just made a big sauce with pork and We had beef meatballs that you could put on top and all kinds of local veggies and spices and herbs from the garden and whatnot. And it just simmered for, a couple hours. And of course, it was delicious. So that kind of thing is even better the next day.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we had that for dinner last night. Yeah, it was delicious.
And was the pork in it just ground pork, like my ground mince beef over here?
Yeah, so we had ground and seasoned a couple different kind of, I don't know what you want to say, flavors of pork. And some we also put into like casings, like sheep intestines or whatever.
Yeah.
And made sausages out of. So I actually had some ground in there, and I also had some sausages that I had boiled and then sliced and put into the sauce. So it was like really, really texture-y.
Yeah, lots of different things.
Kind of how I like
and the
my
meatballs
sauce.
too.
Yeah.
Wow. Yum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Well, I said it was a feast. So
do you have tea now?
We kind of go all out on the Sundays.
Do you have tea now with you to get you through?
Oh, yes. I have tea, my criminal raw honey, and raw cream. So not very British of me. But
well,
okay.
actually, a listener sent me an email after you talked about that last time saying, well, actually, it is okay to have cream in English breakfast tea. So you're off the hook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have to go back. I think
once again.
I have to go back and find that email to find the details of it. But he was very definite that it's okay for you to do that. So I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to tell you off.
I mean, you can, but I always feel a little bit wrong when I do it. But I'll be over that now.
Good.
I have a review, Allison, for us to read. And it is a 5-star review. Leave us a 5-star review if you want to hear us read it on the air. They're really fun to read. So thank you for this review. It is titled Practical Information, and I don't know who wrote it. We don't have their name. But they said, I have learned so many practical tips and things from this podcast. It is one I will always follow. I so appreciate their wisdom about food. So those are kind words. Yeah. We appreciate your comment.
Absolutely.
Also, Allison, speaking of moving and the computer and Rob standing out in the wind holding an antenna so he can talk or whatever he's doing right now.
Yeah.
Talk to me about website updates, please.
Yeah, don't tell anyone that Rob's outside in the rain holding an aerial up so we can record a podcast today. Yeah, we have some website updates. So for a while, a couple of the things on our website were offline because the spammers get much better at attacking you. You put something up and then they find some way of getting around it. And it's a nightmare trying to have a website these days. I sound like an old lady, don't I? But you have to put up so many defences. Sometimes you see when you go to a site, you've got to say how many pictures have fire hydrants in and you've got to tick some box to say you're not a robot.
No,
all of these things. But so we had some problems with some spam, but that's all fixed now. So the stories form, which is on the site, if you go to the menu option, you'll see an option under there called stories. In episode 86, we sort of launched this feature, which is where we're asking for you to send us in stories of ancestral ways of cooking and preparing food. So that form is back up there now. Go listen to episode 86, if you haven't, which is where we share some really amazing ancestral pieces of writing and stories that we love. On that form, you can either type something, you can upload a file, or you can record. And we're particularly looking for any recipes that you might have in your family with traditional fats, any stories around butchering, around bread making, fermentation, foraging, grain processing, comfort foods, dairying. If there's any stories from kind of your family or your friends inside your family network that you think we would be interested in, we're trying to collate them to be able to store them and keep them for posterity. So that form is back online. Also, we have a listener survey, which again was offline for some time, but that is back now, which has some questions if you'd like to fill it in and let us know about you and what you'd like to see in the podcast, what you've particularly enjoyed. Then you again go to the menu and then under the About Us option, there is a listener survey button. If you go to that, that is available for you to fill in and send to us, and we will be able to read it. So those are the online updates. Thanks, Andrea.
We've gotten some really interesting stories on that form.
Yes, absolutely. And
from listeners, which is
amazing.
I
mean, I feel really strongly about these stories are there in people's memories.
Yes.
And give it 10, 20, 30 years, how many of them will just have disappeared?
Gone.
And that's so sad and an injustice to the people who spent their lives working on things like that. We should be trying to keep them and make them available for people to learn from and understand from and reflect on the food system. So, yeah, very, very important. Definitely.
As you found with your oat research, not only, we're not just talking somebody spent their whole life, we're talking 1,000 years of tradition or more.
Yeah,
which can be lost in one generation when the story isn't told and a machine learned how to do a thing, was taught how to do a thing, and then nobody with a body remembered.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also noticed from the things that you had, some of the sources you had pulled from in the oat chapters that I've read so far, they're not, official, when we learn about Shakespeare or something, you're looking for birth and death certificates or, notes in the church or marriage or whatever. But the food things is always kind of off the cuff side stories or memories or recollections or some lady going around and collecting stories from people. And so this is the only way we're going to get, there is archaeological data that comes out of those stories and that sometimes confirms other things we thought we knew or surprises us about cultures. And so important to have it.
Yeah, it's like it's a folk memory, it's an embodied folk memory. And once once that's lost from bodily memory, from family memory, from folk memory, then it's gone. And the way I found it for the book so far, most of it is, like you say, reports. Someone went and interviewed some women and they saved the tape somewhere. Or there was a report in a newspaper about something that happened and someone was interviewed. And it's only through absolutely digging for that stuff. There's not a science around it. And like you said, if we don't try and find those and respect those and see those as important, then we just lose them. They're just gone.
They're gone. Yeah. So thank you, everyone, for putting those in, and talk to your elders and grandparents. And if there's things you remember them saying or weird tools you saw in their kitchen, let's hear about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Allison, kind of on that note, actually, I was going to say we've had a few comments in the past month or so about people who are kind of saying what you and I were saying, which is we can't tolerate being on social media, and yet we still find that we are really enjoying Discord, and it just doesn't have that social media feel. So if somebody is thinking that they want to get into that, but they just can't handle another feed stuffed with ads, don't worry. This is like those old school forums from back in the day when the internet was still all HTML, and it's fun. It's really fun to chat.
Yeah,
and something that
go on.
Well, I was going to say something kind of fun that you didn't know we were doing, but when you got online, you saw we were doing, and probably surprised you, was it came out of conversations on Discord. A couple of us have got your Boza course, and we just needed the kick in the pants to get together and do it. So we decided to, we have a thread for talking about it, or a channel, or whatever the heck it's called. And then we all got together on Zoom yesterday, and we actually watched some of the videos from your class together. So it was really like we watch and then we discuss. We watch and then we discuss.
Okay.
And everybody enjoyed Gabriel's little recital in the background.
He's singing in the background of one of the videos.
It's so cute. It's so cute. And it was just something fun that came out of having the conversations that we realized, okay, we all want to do this thing, and we just, there's nobody standing next to you that says, yeah, let's do it together. But there's something really powerful about the energy of somebody else doing it with you. So Hannah was literally pouring millet into her pan on camera.
Oh, wow.
While we were on the call. She's like, I am so fired up right now. She's already made it once, but then she didn't do it again. Or she made it a couple times.
So she's starting it again.
But she said, I'm starting again. I'm so inspired. So all of us are feeling like that is a really good thing. So
this is
if anybody
the
else
joy
wants
of the
to,
Discord, isn't it? This is the joy of the Discord, that you can take the inspiration and the guidance that I might offer in one of my courses, like the Boza course, but you're still, you might not necessarily, like you say, get to doing it because it's just you in your kitchen. But when we come together on our Discord forum as part of our community, it is people all together, people sharing what they're doing in their kitchen. And it feels like it's more than just you alone. And going back to what you said at the beginning about, the difference between that and social media, I had Rebecca, who's one of our supporters, came over from the States and came to visit Rob, Gabriel and I last week. And she was saying, I used to be on Instagram, but, the only social media I do now is the podcast Discord. And it's got this sense of kind of, there's no need to go anywhere else now, because this is a community of people who get what we're about and who are interested and excited and following the same path that we are. And so that whole need for reaching out and finding community because you haven't got the community there is just fed in such a beautiful way by Discord with, like you said, no kind of ads, no other things trying to distract you. It's just, you go to the place where you want to talk about sourdough and there's a board about sourdough. You go to the place about offal and there's a board on offal, or you create a little community like you have done who says, okay, let's do all this. Let's do Alison's course together. And then you actually, getting together on Zoom and doing it together. I think it's so amazing. I absolutely love it.
And we're going to do more of your courses too, just so you know. So we're all probably going to vote on which one we'll do next. So we all are enjoying it though, and just having we've been kind of jokingly calling it our emotional support kitchen group, and it's just kind of fun. And so if anybody else wants to hop on, then we just post the Zoom link before we're going to get together in the Discord channel where we are. And so anybody who's in there is welcome to hop on, but you do have to buy the course, whichever one we're doing. I'd made that the only rule, because you just have to buy the course beforehand, because even if we don't watch it, we're definitely going to talk about it. And I don't want to give away all your content.
Yeah. So anyone who's already on Discord could just look out for that. But if you're not on Discord and you'd like to be, you get the Discord membership with even with the lowest of our membership
you can do the lowest one.
Levels. So do go to Ancestral Kitchen Podcast /join and have a look, and you can get involved from there.
Who knows where we're going to end up with this. Also on Discord, Alison, I saw, so you and Lizzie have your own private channel. I can see it, but I don't think anybody else in there can, because you are doing the special mentorship with her, and you and her are, I don't even know what you guys are doing, but you're like intense in there.
The most amazing chat. So, one of the levels that we have on the podcast community is the mentorship level, which gives an opportunity for anyone who wants to take it up to have one-on-one calls with Andrea or I. And currently I'm working with one of our lovely supporters, Lizzie, who wanted to kind of take me on as a mentor to work through the projects that she has been wanting to do for some time and wasn't able to quite bring it all together, wanted some more support in it, basically. So we've been having chats for over 6 months now, and she's been doing some incredible things in her kitchen. And it's quite, for me, I listen to her talking about these things and I get all excited about them, and I think, I want to do it. I want to do it as well. But then I have to remember I'm writing a book on oats, so I have to go back to that. But it's really wonderful for her to be able to share what she's doing with someone who gets it and someone who's working through projects. I'm working through projects myself and able to give her kind of we talk about kitchens and we talk about the specifics of, cooking certain things, but we're also talking about the processes that we're going through and the kind of procrastination and all of the other things that come with wanting to do things in your life, wanting to do something. And there's a private chat for her on Discord as well. So as well as having those calls, we're having chit chat back and forth quite often on Discord.
That's nice because it keeps your thoughts flowing in between and kind of builds up to the get together. Well, and I can also see how it's really helpful because Brittany, who I think has gotten all of your courses at this point, she said I'm watching these courses and I'm realizing everything Allison does, she just researches to the nth degree. This is just amazing. So being able to hear you, even just your banter on things, you're like, wow, the level of understanding you have is pretty intense. So
thank you.
You can see how it's really helpful.
I'm kind of like this crazy person who just goes into, won't stop until I'm completely satisfied, which has its ups and downs, really. Okay, let's go to an ad break. If you're into ancestral eating, you'll know that liver is a superfood. Full of vitamin A, K and a whole host of B vitamins, plus many essential minerals, it has an exceptional nutrient profile and is a staple of traditional healthy diets. But it's not always easy to consistently get liver into our lives. Finding a good supply, cooking it so it actually tastes good, and getting all of our family to eat it. These things can be hard, especially when we're busy or travelling. That's where Andrea and I turn to liver capsules. They give us all the benefits of liver without having to worry about the sourcing, the preparation, or the eating. One Earth Health produces organ capsules from 100% grass-fed New Zealand-raised cattle. As a podcast listener, you can get 15% off your first order and 5% off subsequent orders by using the link in our show notes. And each time you order, you'll also be supporting us to continue making this podcast. Okay, so let's dive into today's episode. Do remember that this is kind of the second episode of 2, although they each stand on their own. You don't have to have listened to episode 117, which was on a similar theme. But if you do want to, or if you particularly enjoy this episode and you haven't listened to 117, go back a few episodes in your feed and find that one and listen to it as well. And what we are talking about is nuggets of ancestral wisdom. And this came from a post that I wrote on my blog to celebrate my 50th birthday. And we decided that we really wanted to chat about these things and air them and have conversations with supporters afterwards. So in episode 117, we covered numbers 1 to 26. And in this episode, we've got 24 more nuggets of ancestral wisdom. So shall I just dive in, Andrea, with number 27 and we'll
I am ready.
Rolling. Yeah. Okay.
Like
so number 27 is rest, rest, rest. And I could have just put another 10 rests after that, because I know in my own life, and I know I'm not the only one, that the impetus to rest often only comes after collapse. I have to get ill in order to rest, or I have to be really, really exhausted in order to rest. And that's not the way our ancestors live. Our ancestors worked hard. If you think about hunters and gatherers, they walked long distances, and the hunters went out and did really intense exercise, but they also rested. And I remember reading articles saying that, hunter-gatherers rested far more than we do now. And as women, particularly, stages in our life where we might have lots going on. We've got kids, we've got family commitments, we've got work, we've got goals that we want to be at with our health, we've got things we want to do in the kitchen. And then on top of that, we've got all the admin of life, and we've got things binging at us and all of this other stuff. We can just forget rest and think it's not important. But it is so important for our bodies, for our psyches, for our creativity, for our relationships, for us to remember who we are and be able to even be in a state where we remember who we are and don't just go on automatic pilot and have things happening that we don't want to happen. Andrea, what do you want to say about rest?
I agree with this. And it might have even been in a conversation with Brittany when we were saying, there's a group of us that were all talking about, okay, this health thing, that health thing, and reading this book and that book. And then we came to these brilliant conclusions that if you hydrate and get your minerals and you rest, those things will really make all the difference. And we shared these revelations with our husbands, and they're like, okay, yeah, duh. So treat yourself like a human.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There's with your hunter-gatherer example, the appropriate rest at the appropriate time can forestall the future need for healing from the damage or the breakdown that you caused by not resting. And
that's so true.
in those hunter-gatherer lifestyles, they can't have a full breakdown and say, I'm just going to have to order dinner from somewhere. They can't have a full breakdown and destroy their thyroid and say, I guess I have to take thyroid medications. Like, those things don't exist. There's no kind of last-ditch effort, if you will. At the point of not recovering, they just die. So you can see the importance there. And for us to take that to heart, instead of saying, well, I have the money, I'll just spend it, say, well, what if we saved it for a little bit for a rainy day or something in terms of our energy? So I
think
love
that your phrase, treat yourself like a human, is so that kind of cuts to the center of me, because I think for so long in my life, I just treated myself like a machine. I can just push, I can just do this, I can just do that, I can keep going. I'm invincible, I just do this and do that. It doesn't matter. I'm fine. I'm not collapsed. But actually, we're humans and we need rest as well as we need time, with family, and we need time creating. We need all these things. And sometimes if you're in the habit of just not resting at all, you actually just need to schedule in rest. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but in order to move from one way of being to another, it's important for us to perhaps have bridges if we find it difficult. And so saying, okay, on Wednesday afternoon between 2 and 3:30, I'm going to do nothing. Or, I'm going to close down at 6 o'clock every evening and I'm just going to rest. To actually say, I'm going to schedule this in, can help us move from not doing it to doing it.
And it's a little bit like what every once in a while you and I have encountered in life, Allison, where we have to be really actually tracking what we're eating. And that isn't, a count your calories type of a thing, but that's more of I need to know what my baseline is and then establish a new habit. And I don't maybe have the instinct for it. And if we don't have the instinct for rest, or we've shut it off and we've been told it's bad and it's lazy and all the other things that our culture says about rest, then we might need to, like you said, intentionally structure it into the day until it becomes instinctive.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing about rest, because this is just so important. That I think in the past I've thought, well, if I don't just carry on and do this, everything's going to collapse. It's all going to collapse around me. Like, my kid's going to end up eating like beans out of a can, or I'm going to have no money and I'm going to be just in a sleeping bag on the street, or I'm going to never get this done. And I feel like there's a important lesson in there, which slowly I'm learning, which is sometimes you just have to let go of it and see what happens. So in the past, through getting beyond the idea of not resting, I've had to just leave things and let them apparently collapse. And it's interesting because when you apparently let things collapse and you don't do them, they really don't often collapse.
I know, that's the outrageous thing.
I let go of something and
believe the lie.
Within a few weeks, I've noticed that Rob's picked up stuff and he's doing it. And I had that all on my plate and I thought he couldn't do it. But no, actually, that's all. Gabriel's stepped in and done something. Or, you know what, it's been okay. Even if I didn't do this, it's still been okay. But without being willing to actually let go and watch and allow it to potentially collapse, we'll never know. We'll never find another way. We'll never be able to get out of this sort of cycle where we can't rest. So it involves a element of just trusting in a process, really.
Yes, and I will add on to this that a very tangible example, because sometimes those are nice to hear, which is a couple weeks ago, I was, we're still closing out all the harvest stuff out here. So it felt like there was all just kinds of little ripe things that were going to rot. And I just had to do so much and I had to prep all these food things. And I was just in the kitchen. And all of a sudden I felt kind of like dizzy. And I was like, I'm so tired. I've been standing in here for 8 hours or whatever. And I just thought, I'm really tired. And I heated a cup of milk and I whisked in some mushroom cocoa and I poured it in a mug and I sat down on the couch for about 10 minutes and drank it. And I know that sounds like a pretty normal thing to do, but I was leaving a bunch of tasks that, I didn't have something boiling on the stove, but like I was walking away from unfinished things. And I just thought to myself, if I sit down for 10 minutes, am I so great that the entire world is just going to grind to a halt?
Yeah.
And a week from today, we will have no food and be naked and unclothed because I sat down for 10 minutes and drank a cup of milk? No. And you know what, Allison? The world didn't fall apart. And honestly, I don't even think anybody could tell I sat down for 10 minutes. So sometimes you just got to, that little rest was really good for me.
And
I was able to
10
finish.
minutes is valid. You might want to get to something beyond 10 minutes, obviously. But just because you can't get an hour doesn't mean you shouldn't take the 10 minutes. It's important to take what's there.
And it was just that telling myself, treat myself like a human. How would a human be treated? Like I wouldn't put an animal through what I was doing to myself. Anyways.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on that, but I've got to move on to number 28 because we've only done one so far. So
we're
number
really
28 is following what brings you joy is the way to move forward in your life. I know before we started recording this, I looked back at that one and I thought, well, you could just do the things you really don't like and you would move forward in a way, probably, because then you'd find out, oh, I really don't like doing that. And therefore you'd learn something about yourself and have the opportunity to change. But it wouldn't be as nice as following what brings you joy.
Right.
The thing about following what brings you joy is that you need to kind of have the courage to follow what brings you joy. It's easier to do the thing that you think's going to kind of work and you can do without the pressure of doing the thing that might go wrong that you really care about, if that makes sense. So doing the thing you really care about is scarier because it might not work or you might not like it or you might look stupid and then it will really hurt. But I really believe that going forward and doing those things that bring you joy anyway are what will help you develop as a person. It will show you whether you do actually love those things. It will teach you what you need to do to bring them forward. And if there is pain involved in it, it's pain that actually you need to go through in a way in order to be able to bring what you want to the world. It's opportunities to learn from. So I feel like, if you're in a situation where you don't know how to move forward, just try to be still and think about what brings you joy. And choose that each time. And those choices will be beneficial to you. Andrew, do you want to add anything to that?
I'll just add that a good example I'm thinking of is a friend and one of our podcast supporters, Leah. She loves having good food, but she doesn't love like spending a lot of time cooking in the kitchen. So they eat ancestral, natural, pretty much what her husband hunts and fishes for. But they eat very simply. And she said, I really only do meals that only take me 15 minutes to make because I don't want to be in the kitchen. Now, that doesn't mean that they eat poorly. It just means that she doesn't want to spend all her time, dicing an onion to perfection or something. And that's her just actively choosing the thing that brings her joy would be maybe reading on the beach with the kids. Not so much in the kitchen. So that's a way to, she can still accomplish the food, and it's not utilitarian necessarily, but it's just not her focus.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, number 29, and I'm going to read 30 at the same time, and we'll talk about them both. 29, cooking is not a frivolity. Cooking can be an incredibly deep way of connecting to your digestion, your food, the soil, the community, and your family. And number 30, cooking is an art form. And both of those feel like lessons I've had to learn. I kind of just thought, really, until I met Rob, I just thought what I was doing in the kitchen was kind of a bit of a frivolity. It wasn't serious. It wasn't, you couldn't put it up there with any of the other kind of creative art forms that people choose in their life, like music or painting or anything like that. And I've learned that that's just not true. Cooking, whether it's simple or whether it's complicated, whether it's the cooking that Leah's doing or whether it's something that you're preparing for a dinner party with, 15 ingredients, it is an art form. It truly is. And at the same time, it's something that's so vital and a wonderful way to connect. My kitchen and cooking in my kitchen, I'm sure it's the same for you, Andrea, has just brought me so much connection. To my family at the table, seeing them, to my digestion, to the farmers that are giving me that food, to how I feel about food, to my body, to my creativity. It's an amazing thing to choose to do with your time. And I know that from the outside world looking in, cooking is not often viewed like that. And I think that's a sad thing. I think that we've lost something when we treat cooking as a frivolity or something that's not vital for us.
I would agree with that. And that I think that treating cooking as a frivolity is what got us where we are now. It is an option. Oh, somebody else can, make it. We'll just have boxed ones or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what got us in trouble in the first place. And there's a passage from Against the Machine, which Leah kind of got a bunch of us started reading. And we should probably read in one of the podcast channels. I know Francine would really enjoy this book. And I'll link it in the show notes below. But
okay,
he talked about a culture where they had an aspect of their culture that they said, well, we don't need this anymore. They got rid of it, and then the fallout that happened down the next 2 generations, they started to realize, oh no, that was something we actually needed. And I thought of that when I read your number 29.
Yeah.
That we just thought, we don't need that. That's just for fun. We don't have to cook at home. And then,
yeah,
trouble.
Let's see what happens. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 31. The closer you get to your food, the more you value it and see the profound impact it has on all areas of your life and the world around you. I think anyone on this food journey understands that. We've all moved from one place to another, whether it's a huge distance or just some distance. But each time we take a step closer to our food, things kind of shift in our brain and in our body and in our awareness. And it just has this kind of effect, rolling effect, that it changes how we feel and therefore how we live.
Yep. And you and I have an upcoming episode kind of on that topic. So I won't expand on it here, but, there's more coming on this, but I agree very much so.
Yeah. Do you want to read number 32, Andrea?
Sure. Number 32. All actions have a consequence, even good actions.
Ooh. Shall I go on that, or do you want to say something about that?
Allison, how dare you? Yes. Expand, please.
Yeah, I feel like in my life, I've often thought I'm doing something good, and because of that, it's fine. It's not going to affect anything, but everything we do has a consequence. And I just give you an example because it's the easiest way of doing it. In a health journey, we might think, okay, I'm going to really pay attention to this, and I'm going to follow my body, and I'm going to read up on it, and I'm going to choose to do this action. And then we do something which comes from a really good place. I'm going to start taking this herbal supplement or something because I've read that it's really good and I've thought about it for a long time and I'm trying to heal myself. It comes from a good place. But in my experience, I've gone ahead and tried things that apparently help with health concerns, and I've not found out till 3 months later that that's actually having another effect on my body that I wasn't expecting and I don't really want. And whoops, okay. So I thought this thing was kind of just going to solve my problem, but it's now created this other problem. And I really feel like whether we think it's a good choice or it's not, we make that choice based on how we feel in our body and, in our gut at that moment. But we have to understand that sometimes even when we make what seems like the right choice, it might create consequences that we don't want. And that's fine. It's nothing to do with us. It's not, that we're kind of, determined to get bad things happen to us. It's just there are consequences to every action that we take. And, it doesn't mean that we can go ahead and think about what those consequences will be before we take the action. We can't. We never know.
No.
But it's just to try and hold it a bit more lightly that, even when we make a good action, we don't know what's going to happen with it. So just try to hold what happens to us in our lives lightly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And not be in denial when you see the consequence and try to say, but it can't be because that was good. So why this wouldn't happen? You just got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. You've got a really good example of the next one. So do you want us to read 33 and give us your example?
Okay. 33, pushing harder is not the answer. No. Delete this one, Allison. This one made me think of when I've had 4 babies now, and every time when I get to the part where you're pushing, then I'm just like, all right, let's just get this done with, and move on. And the midwife will say, slow down. And I remember thinking with Adelaide in particular, I thought, I'm just going to keep going, ram through this. And I remember her saying, you need to slow down for the baby too. You need to rest. Baby needs to rest. You need oxygen. Baby needs oxygen. And I thought, oh, well, I guess if it's for the baby, then I can rest. But but those little breaks and rest where you take your energy and your oxygen goes back up, they help prevent tissue tearing and things like that. They really do provide a more successful, not, maybe a less damaging pushing experience if you're able to not just ram through harder.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this one that's so true kind of in labour and as in life. We can get frustrated that we just want this thing done, whether it's a baby out or some project finished or something we really want to do done. But going back to that rest, where we started, pushing is going to affect so many other parts of your psyche, and you're going to be in a very different state if you keep pushing at something as if you approach it with a fresh mind, a day later. And then the actual pushing is going to do things to us that are detrimental. And I think if we are present enough, we all know when we're pushing. You can feel when you're doing something and there's that resistance inside you, you just don't want to do it. And sometimes, we might be trying to do something in our life which is just kind of difficult and we feel icky about it, like we're trying to do something outside our comfort zone, or we're emailing someone and we're thinking, oh, they might not reply and I really want to do this. So there is that feeling of, well, I don't want to do this because I'm scared. But there's also I don't want to do this because I'm exhausted, because I've done enough. Right. And it's that pushing harder that we need to try to make ourselves conscious of and give ourselves the opportunity to choose a different way, choose to not do it. That makes sense?
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, yes, it does make sense.
On that note, let's go to an ad break. When you bake bread the ancestral way, you soon realise it's not just about what happens in the kitchen that matters. Health and flavour both start in the soil. That's why, for our US listeners, we're recommending Grand Teton Ancient Grains. They are a family-run, organic, regenerative farm located in Idaho that grow ancient grains including spelt, rye, einkorn and emmer, plus heritage varieties of wheat and gluten-free grains. And I can personally verify how workable and delicious they are, having made bread, pizza and pancakes from these grains in my own kitchen. Grand Teton sells freshly milled flours, or if you grind your own grain, you can get the berries. When you buy in bulk, you get free shipping, saving a lot of money. And it's so exciting to receive your order because the product arrives in beautiful paper bags. Check out with free shipping on their website at ancientgrains.com. It's a great way to fill your pantry with a large selection of organic, glyphosate-free ancient grains. So be sure to stock up at ancientgrains.com. Okay, number 34. Do you want to read that one as well, Andrea? Because that's a really nice one.
Yes, this is a really good one, and I really, really like that you put this one on here. Number 34, restricting your choices in the kitchen will force you to be more creative.
Okay. Tell us a bit about that then, Andrew. What do you feel about that one?
We've both been through this.
Yes.
What this made me think of was just the idea that more choices don't produce more creativity, which is actually the opposite of what we're being told today. I hear a baby at the top of the stairs. There's this idea that, if I can do whatever I want and you don't restrict me in any way whatsoever, then I can really express my full creativity.
Yeah.
But that's actually not true. And modern art, like as in art of the moment, where there's like a twisted piece of wire in a park and they say this represents aspiration or something.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and see the Sistine Chapel and you're like, I don't know about that. And the example that came to my mind specifically was poetry. If you've ever tried to write a sonnet, they're very, very specific. They have 14 lines. There's a precise way they're divided depending on which type of sonnet you're doing. There's a specific rhyming pattern. They follow iambic pentameter, and then they have that turn at the end. There has to be a line at the end where you flip. And all of the language and ideas that exist out there, when you just pour them into these rules, I feel like they just press outwards, up against these rules, and they just explode into all these blossoms that never would have happened if you just kind of scattered any words you wanted without any restriction whatsoever into any order that you wanted them. There's too much choice, just drowns us and overwhelms us.
Yeah. We've talked about this a bit before. I think we talked about it in the episode when we released the cookbook, making nutrient-dense meals every day. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to that episode. Because both of us have experienced, when we have the restrictions, i.e. just seasonal restrictions of food based on, buying things seasonally, or, like you at the moment, we're gluten-free. We have less choices, but both of us become more creative when we've got less choices. And I think, the book that I'm writing at the moment, the women who made these recipes that are in this book, sometimes the only grain they ever had was oats, but that did not stop them. In fact, that made them more creative because the only grain they had was oats. It's something that's just a kind of a universal truth. And like you said, we think the opposite, but we've been fooled.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Number 35. Humans are founts of creativity. You have so much more creativity than you will ever know. Andrea, I think you've got some technology thing to say about this one.
I have a thought. Get off of Instagram. Just let your own mind create its own inspo. This is something I remember from the Instagram world most intensely, which is always #inspo. And I'm going to post this for inspo. I'm going to save this for inspo. And you can save and screenshot 9,000 things from somebody else, or you can just get off of Instagram and let your mind start to work on its own. Let your mind start to make its own connections. Let your mind start to see the connections that exist in the materials or the foods or the the hungry people in front of you and let that be your inspiration. And it is just astonishing what you come up with. And I, many times I think, man, my life has never been more Instagrammable than the day I got off of Instagram. Because beautiful things started to happen when I wasn't always thinking, oh, the way she did that, oh, I want to try that. I just did what I wanted and what I saw in front of me. And those were limited choices. I didn't have what other people have. I didn't go and get what other people had. I just only had what was here.
Yeah.
And that made something beautiful.
I think that's the thing, that you did what you wanted. And when we are surrounded by other things, the news or the magazines or the Instagram or Facebook or just all of this stuff, we just kind of like a ship on the waves being pushed around by what other people want us to think we want or think we need to do or think we need to buy. That's the thing, because that's what these platforms are there for. But the truth is,
right.
the thing that satisfies us is the thing that we want to do. And truly, we don't know what we want to do unless we close down all the things that other people think we want to do and sit with what's in front of us in our life, like you're saying, the people we need to feed, the things in our kitchen, the food we've got. From that moment, without that interference, and it might take time, but we can understand what it is actually we want to do, what we care about, what we value, what we want to bring
it will take
out
time.
in the world. It will take time. You can't necessarily be off Instagram for one day and expect it, because you've still got all those habit things running around in your mind. You need time for those to ebb away. But it will happen. And the quieter you can be, the more quickly things will start to kind of just present themselves to you, and they'll be far more fulfilling than you trying to copy anyone else. Because
Absolutely.
Seriously, our creativity just goes on and on and on. And I've had lots of people say to me, "Oh, I'm not really creative. I like to get a recipe book and follow the recipes." I just don't believe it.
That just devastates me to hear.
I just don't. It's about not looking at what other people are doing, but instead being with yourself and being patient. And then this thing will come forward. It really will. Okay.
And for all the Charlotte Mason moms listening, and everybody's heard about people who started narration with kids who had been in maybe a different method of schooling for a while, or started homeschooling, whether it's Charlotte Mason or not, with kids who are in a more industrialized type of school idea. And everybody says, "Oh, my kids, they don't know how to narrate. They don't know how to say what they heard. They don't know how to look at pictures or listen to music." And that we all know, because we've all seen it, that if you just spend time doing those beautiful things, after a while, they do learn. So that's the same with us adults. We've been stuck in this, industrialized inspo cage, and we just need to get off of it and learn how to narrate for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. 36, examining any resentment you hold over and over again. And this is one where I'm talking to myself, that, these resentments, if we leave them in our bodies, do kind of boring damage. I feel like it's a boring thing, it bores into you, into our psyches and into our bodies, our actual tissues, our cells, and resentment to me feels just such a hard thing to kind of get out. And the only way you can is by looking at it and saying, what is this? Why have I got it? What's under this? I feel bitter about this. Okay, well, why do I feel bitter about this? Where's it coming from? What is it that what situations bring it forward? Why do I feel like this? And through doing that, we can slowly start to understand why we feel resentment and do things, action things in our lives that help us to move us into situations where we're going to feel less resentful. And, that might be by doing something. It might be by having a practice of thinking about something or changing mindset. It might be by taking rest. It might be by going and treating ourselves to something that we want to do in our lives and we haven't done. But without actually addressing that resentment, it just stays there like a big, heavy thing in our bodies. And that's really not nice.
No,
do you want to add something to that, Andrea?
Yeah, I would agree. I do agree. And I think there's a resentment / almost like PTSD or trauma sometimes for some people that comes up with food choices. If they were, if they experience like food restriction or food insecurity, then when you come into a space where you say, we're going to not eat this or not eat that, that can start to trigger those feelings again. And so just being very aware of it and knowing that maybe somebody else can say, oh, I think I'm going to cut this out of my diet for now and just carry on with their life. If you feel a lot of fear and anxiety and panic over that, just know that you can treat yourself the way you need to be treated differently. It doesn't have to look like it looked for somebody else on their Instagram. Your path can be maybe slower or more roundabout, but just take that into account. Yeah. Thank you for that. Each of these is kind of so many layers because, you can apply it to the food, you can apply it to other areas in our life, you can apply it to relationships. There's all these kind of, because they're, I think, truths, they apply in so many different areas. Yeah. Okay, 37. If you want to remain active, choose a lifestyle where you have to be active. I think it can be very challenging for us to stay active, particularly, as we get older and with the ease of not being active in our society. And the only way I've learned to do that is by choosing the things around me. So I have to be active. I have to get up. I have to go and do things. I have to walk. I have to, move my body. It's a bit different for you, Andrea, because you're kind of in the middle of nowhere physically, whereas I'm in a town and you've got a vehicle and I haven't, and you've got 4 kids and I haven't. How do you feel about that one? Yeah, this is actually, it's in something Gary and I have been talking about a lot lately, which is actually being really far away in some ways can cause us to be less active if we let it. Because like when we lived in town, when you can walk to the library, you can walk to church, you can walk to the farmer's market, you can walk to the grocery store, you can walk to your friend's house, you just do. And here, we're 2 miles from our closest neighbor. So we can walk there and we do, but it's certainly not really time reasonable to expect to walk everywhere. So commitment. Yeah. So I think this is something that would be fun for us to tease out maybe on a KTC sometime and discuss some ideas around, because I think it is a really important topic, and where you live does play an important role in that. I've experienced living, like along a beach boardwalk. And so you're automatically outside every single day on the beach boardwalk. I've experienced living in like a neighborhood, kind of how you've described, where, there's no shoulder of the road, no sidewalk. It's very dangerous to walk outside with children. And then where I am now, there's just forest outside. So you can walk, but there's not really like there's a task to walk to. So they all came down to choices and what we had to build into our routine. So I think that would be a fun one to discuss more sometime. Yeah, we should do that. We have and really get listener thoughts on too. We have really interesting discussions on the KTC chats, which is the kitchen table chats. That's our private podcast. So we'll. Oh yeah, I didn't explain what those are. We'll table that one for a discussion there, because I'd like to go into it more. Okay, do you want to read 38? Yeah. Changes you make now will have an impact on you in 20 years' time. Gosh. Okay. And what do you feel about that? Yeah. I remember specifically saying this actually on Instagram. People would say, why are you doing this or that? I did that for a week and it didn't do anything for me. And I said, I'm not doing this for now me. I'm doing this for 90-year-old me. Yeah. I remember saying that. But I think of it as a compass. And if you're on a ship or whatever, or walking in the woods, even if you're 1 degree off course, by the time you've gone 100 miles, that adds up. Oh gosh. So those little changes you make now can take you to a completely different place over the course of time. And I find that very, very important to think about.
Yeah, I do too. And this kind of ties into the last one for me, because I feel like, our choice, Rob and I's choice not to have a car, the walking that I'm choosing to do by making that choice, I know now, being 50, and Rob and I didn't have a car when we were 30, 36, 37 and together, but it feels more important to me now, because it feels like every time I go out and walk, I'm doing something which will stand me in better stead for the future. I have a hypermobile body, and I have a mum who can barely walk up the end of her road. And those investments of choosing to go out and walk, even if it's raining or I'd much rather get somewhere more quickly, feels like I'm doing it for me now, but I'm also doing it for future me. But I do think that, that statement, changes you make now will have an impact on you in 20 years' time, shouldn't be something that we feel, oh my gosh, I've got to go and change all this stuff, because otherwise I'm just going to be a mess in 20 years. It has to be a balance. We can't ruin our life now just in order to be better in 20 years' time. But there are moments where we do have a choice, and for those few choices, we can make some of them be partially for an investment in the future as well.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
And thinking through your choices and deciding what really is a choice, kind of going back up to don't lie to yourself, and what really is necessary and what really isn't necessary. And then making the choices from a place of joy as opposed to feeling panic or urgency is also really important.
Agreed. Okay. Do you want to do 39 as well?
Yeah, because this one, 39. Having children at home is such a challenging lifestyle, but brings immense benefits. It's so true. Actually, we could take this both ways. Having children at home, like birthing them at home, or keeping them at home. And by this, are you referring more to like less of them being maybe out in public school, or what? Because even somebody with their kids in public school is experiencing this too. So I wasn't sure exactly
I think, whatever, if you have a kid at home for like 3 hours a week because you're co-parenting with someone, it has less challenges than having your kids at home, 12 hours a day when you're awake, and even when you're asleep and they're ill, you're up being with them. The more that you give your energy to your children, the more challenging it is. I feel like my lifestyle would be, in quotes, easier if Gabriel wasn't at home. And for a while he was at a Steiner school when we were living in Italy, and I had more hours in my day which were peaceful, and I could get on with things in the kitchen and I could do things. And now he's here all the time.
Yeah.
And, for a while, Rob and I thought we just can't do it because we're just trying to bring in enough money to survive. We can't have Gabriel at home all the time. It just won't work. But working through that and the different choices that were available to us, this is the life we chose, where we're homeschooling him now since we've moved back to England. But the benefits of having him around are just wonderful. Just having little ones with you all the time, accompanying you through life, is joyful. The more time I spend with Gabriel, the more I learn about myself, the more I learn about him, the more I learn about life, the more he teaches me to let go of my kind of adult ways. Or the more I learn the way to work with him, the way to engage with him, and for us to move together, both of us, for us both to move forward together. And it is challenging, but I love having him around, And so if it is possible, which it has been possible for us, then I'm ever so grateful for that,
Yep. Well, that's a good one. And if you only have your kids for part of the week, you still have obviously challenges. They're just different shaped sometimes.
Yeah.
But a very wise thing I learned from my mom, who had 8 kids, homeschooled all of us, and never had a babysitter that I ever experienced. Then she said, you can do anything with any number of kids if you don't hurry. And as soon as you try to rush the kid, then it's all over. It's
Ding
all over.
dong, no, exactly. And that's hard for someone who just wants to tick off all the tasks on a list, which has been my kind of habit, you know? That's hard.
Yeah, they'll teach us. All right, let me read 40 because this actually nests in very well with what we just said. We can do things we never believed possible.
Yeah, we just have to put that one in there.
I like that.
I mean, you just... that. Again and again, that's been true of my life. I've just thought, that's not possible. And then some of the time I've just tried to do it anyway, and it's happened. And, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but I think it's important to remind us of that, you know, we all have these limits in our heads that we just think, oh, that's not possible, that's not possible. And those are put in there by the experiences we've had and the upbringing we've had and what people who had their own issues to deal with have told us. But there are, again and again and again, there are signs in life that people do things that you just wouldn't believe they could do. And we just do.
And
so there's something...
we sometimes, you know, you said these can be put into our head by things we grew up with, et cetera. And sometimes they're just things that we grew up thinking that's the way the world is.
Yeah.
And that's not actually true.
Yeah.
It's all we knew.
Absolutely.
Thought we knew.
When I grew up and you know, when I was working and I ended up working for Microsoft, I remember thinking over and over and over again, oh, I'm not the sort of person who goes and lives in another country. I'm not the sort of person who could go and, you know, create something of their own. I'm the sort of person who does this job and, you know, settles down and gets on with it and does well. Because that's the only, like you were saying, that was what my world was, you know, and I had to jump out of it to see that there's another world over here where, you know what, I could live in Italy for 10 years. I am the sort of person who lives in Italy for 10 years because I did it. You know, I am the sort of person who's now writing her own book, which I never, as a kid growing up, the world that the water that I swam in, you know, we talk about the fish, you know, only knowing the water they're in. Yeah. The world that I swam in was just like, well, you're not going to do that, are you? You know, just keep your head down.
No, other people do that.
Do what someone else says. Other more creative people do that, Alison. People who just are more talented or more creative. And it's a load of rubbish. All of it.
Throw it out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. On that note, let's go to an ad break.
Hey, you washing the dishes. Been there. You've heard Alison and I talk over and over about her love of rye sourdough bread. Well, I might actually call it an obsession, but that's neither here nor there. Now you can make Alison's rye sourdough in your own kitchen with her as your teacher. And she's a really good teacher. Rye is economical, it's delicious, and full of nutrients and low in gluten. There's a reason why it has been a darling of bread bakers for centuries. Make it into sourdough, as Alison will show you in her course, Rye Sourdough Bread, Mastering the Basics. And you've got an amazing, tasty, and nutritious staple in your kitchen. It's traditional and it's nutritional. In this course, you'll learn everything there is to know about how she creates and maintains her rye sourdough starter, all about whole grain sourdough rye, including the key differences between baking with rye and wheat, how to make 2 loaves, an everyday rye sandwich bread, and a delicious Russian-style dark rye loaf, and what to do with your sourdough discard, including video walkthroughs for sourdough pancakes and a tasty, sweet, spiced cake. Head to www.ancestralkitchen.com/rye.
Okay, so 41, we're on the home stretch now. 41 is lean on your past work. Remember challenges you've been through and the hard things you've done. That is something that sometimes I forget, and Rob's very good at reminding me. When I was planning to birth Gabriel at home and feeling shaky about it because every kind of yoga class I went to, they were all kind of ended up in hospital, and I was like, is this going to work? And no one I knew had birthed at home, and my parents thought I was crazy. And Rob would say to me, just, you've been working towards this for years, Alison. You've done the hypnobirthing, you've done the meditation, you've done the breathing, you've done the research, you've worked with your food. You've been working towards this for such a long time. We can lean. You don't need to stress. We can lean on what we've done so far. And I'd kind of just forgotten all about that. I was just like, but everyone else is just, no one's doing this and I don't know anyone. But all of us have done things in our lives that have been hard and that have moved us places, and it's easy to forget that. So I just would take a moment to remind us to lean on how strong we are and what we've done.
Thank goodness for Rob, the voice of reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more you do those things, the more you strengthen that muscle of self-belief, or that, internal locus of control. And I want to throw out there episode 87, Taking Your Health in Your Own Hands here. If this is something that's at all pinging with you, like, go listen to that one, because I'll put that in the show notes. Because that episode, I just shared it with a friend the other day, and she said, this is exactly what I needed to hear, because she needs to start believing in her own, ability to use her brain and make decisions and whatnot. So that's a really good episode.
Yeah. Do you want to read 42? And do 43 as well.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to read them back to back?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. 42. When we have clarity of direction and we put in effort, things shift. 43. Here's the turn in the sonnet. But 99% of the time, it's always slower than we want. You shouldn't have put that one, Alison.
How frustrating is
that? So true.
Yes. I feel like
agree with this.
Clarity is the important word in the first one of those. It's important, if we want to move, that we have clarity on where we're moving to. Because that really is the one thing that helps us move. If we are unsure, or there's something that we're kind of a bit icky about, or we're doing it together with someone else and they don't quite think the same as us, then we're just not going to move forward properly. But with clarity, when you put in effort, when you take the action, things move. But always in my life, it's always slower than we want it to.
Yeah.
Things never just kind of appear. I feel like I had this idea about like 5 years ago. Oh, I'd love to write a book on oats. And here I am 5 years later, and I haven't even written a third of it, And it's just like, really? Does it take this long? Yes, it does. It does take that long.
Well, you could even add on to this that the shift isn't always linear either.
No, sometimes it could just go
5 years to get. Yeah, 5 years to get through a third doesn't mean it will take 10 years to get through the remaining 2/3. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes things just shift and you're like, oh, how did that happen? And usually it's because we've done a lot of work in the past, and suddenly something else changes and then we move forward. What were you going to say?
Basically the exact same thing. It's just that ship with the compasses in my head. And, when you kind of, if you've ever watched like a ship leave the dock or something, and it's like grinding, those paddles are spinning and it's trying to kind of get its momentum up. But then once it's out on the open water, it's cruising.
Yeah, it's going. Exactly. The momentum's there.
All right. Okay. 44 is a good one.
44. Calories are not what the world thinks they are. Don't believe in calories. Don't have them fool you. I've believed in calories for far too long, and they're a load of rubbish. I know it sounds right. The science of it sounds right, with Bunsen burners, burning things and getting the energy and etc. But calories don't work like calories. And, the more that we go into our bodies and we watch what happens with our weight and our metabolism when we eat different things, we understand that. I think calories are just a fallacy. I shall move on from that. Let's read number 45.
Inhuman way of thinking about food.
Absolutely.
That way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's read number 45 and number 46. Do both of them together.
Yeah. Okay. Number 45. There is so much going on outside the bubbles we live in. 46. But sometimes it's best to live in our bubbles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I really like this one. It's true.
Feels like, do you have that song in the States called the Hokey Cokey?
Yes.
And you got to jump in, you got to jump out.
Unfortunately,
You put your left leg in and your left leg out, in, out, in, out, shake it all about. And I feel like
it's true.
Sometimes when I step outside these four walls, you know, either physically or metaphorically, I put my foot in something and I'm like, my gosh, does this really go on? I've forgotten about that. Is this the way the world is? And sometimes it's good to have that perspective to realise, you know, that to help you realise why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important to you. But sometimes it's best just to not put your foot in it at all and just shut the door and go on Discord and talk to someone who believes in what you believe in and to help you move forward and to help you feel good about what you're doing and to give you that support. So there's just this kind of game of balancing the bubble inside and out. Do you feel the same, Andrea?
I sure do. And there's a big amount of the world out there that will constantly remind you, hey, you're not good enough to listen to your instinct. But if you pay me, I can tell you what to do. And the less you hear all of that chatter, the better it is. And if you're surrounded by people who say, yeah, I'm very much listening to myself and I'm making different decisions, then you might say, wow, I probably should be reflecting a bit more or thinking about things. And in my notes, I had written, we don't need to keep up with and you wrote, any piece of news and information. It's impossible. And rewinding to earlier in our episode, guess what? If you don't know who shot who in the what now, the world is going to carry on. Try not reading the news for a couple days, and guess what? Nobody cares. The world still continues. So, I think
it's exactly, agree with you exactly there. Let's leave the bubbles and go on to 47. Community is so important. It's kind of talking about the bubbles a bit. Support can be the difference between giving up and keeping going. Plus, it enlivens your life. And
absolutely.
I mean, when we started this podcast, one of the reasons we started it was because we were in our kitchens doing what we were doing and not really feeling like there was a lot of other people around us doing what we were doing. And having done this, it's just, wow, there's a community out there of people who value this and who are doing what we're doing and who care about the same things. And, you know, that Discord forum that you were talking about at the top of the show is the example of that these women are together talking to each other every day about what they're doing and what they're worried about and what they're planning to do with their kids and what they're cooking and what they did when they went out and the choices they're making. And it's just amazing. You know, Hannah, who is on Discord and part of the supporter community, sent this to me today, and I thought, I'll just copy that and I'll paste it into our note. She said, thank you. I cannot express enough what this podcast and community means to me in my healing journey and for building a solid foundation for my children. And, you know, we know what that's like being on that journey. People who are listening know what that's like. When you're trying to embark on a healing journey or continue on a healing journey, or if you're trying to, you know, put good food on the table or make decisions for children in your life, make decisions for the people you love in your life, it's hard when you're alone. So hard.
Yeah.
And just having community is so vital, and it will keep you going and it will give you joy because there are people there who just get it, you know. It's just like, they understand. I can talk to these people. So, I feel very strongly.
And when there's I agree with that. And something that I know a number of us have talked about a bit is being able to be in a space where you don't have to defend and justify and argue and explain every single thing you're doing, because it is, without realizing it, we are so counter to the way a lot of things are done. And so then when you say something casually, then people are just like, what? And then you find yourself having to, you know, give a thesis statement for everything. And then people push back against everything you say. And it's just tiring sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Shall I go on to the next one?
Yeah, that's a good segue to the number 48.
Yeah, okay. 48. The creative process is incredibly challenging, but the payoff is magnificent. I feel like every creative process that I've been involved in my life, whether it's a big one, long-term one, like writing a book, or whether it's a short-term one, just like, what am I going to cook today with what's inside the door of my fridge? All of them are hard work. We might not want to do them. There are frustrations, there's procrastination, there's choices we have to make. It's scary. But the payoff of seeing that meal that you made out of leftovers, or, that book on spelt that we have for sale, all of those breads that I've made, or the garden that we've put our heart and soul into and watched develop over a season. The payoff of that is glorious. Absolutely glorious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you want to read 49? We're almost there.
Yeah, 49. This one is good. I think we should not read the last one. We should just leave that one off. I'm just kidding. We have to read the last one. Okay, 49. Learning to accept, not fight failure is a key to being fulfilled. If we can pass this on to our children, we have done amazingly.
Oof. I don't know what else to say.
That is so... Oh, that is wonderful. And our kids get to see lots of failures.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way, isn't it? If you can show your kids those failures and show how you continue despite having a failure, you're okay afterwards, you get up.
Yeah.
Then they're seeing that behaviour model, which is by far the strongest way to pass that information on to them.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so who's reading 50 then?
Okay, are you ready to tackle this last one?
Yeah, are you going to read it or am I going to read it?
I'm going to let you read this one.
Okay.
I don't want this on my conscience.
Number 50. Screens are addictive and change your brain patterns. Amen.
Yeah. Amen to that.
There's nothing more we can say.
Amen and oh no.
Really. Do go back and listen to the episode why I gave away my iPhone, and there is a brilliant supporter extra, if I do say so myself, where Andrea talks with my husband about using e-ink screens which don't have a flicker on them, and how we use those for basically all our work. And, you don't have to be as extreme as we are, but the understanding that literally your brainwave changes because of screens, and screens are addictive. Having that knowledge and holding that knowledge whilst we're interacting with the things that modern life gives us is a freedom, I think.
So some of the things we've said so far that play into this for me are, one, not lying to myself and saying, but that's not really, it doesn't really affect me, or I'm not using it in a way that would affect me. Well, that isn't true. Anytime I'm interacting with a screen, then I am subjecting myself, no flicker free or not. I'm still participating in something of a culture that can affect the way I think and the way my day flows. And the other thing is, oh, hold on, a dog just came down here. Okay.
Hello.
The other thing is not believing the lie that I'm not the kind of person that would get rid of my iPhone, or maybe get rid of social media, or I'm not the kind of person who would change my day structure so that I was only on at certain times or whatever. Like, we can be that person. We can make those choices. We have the freedom as much as anybody else does, really. And yes, knowing that there are people who are working on, like you and Rob have certain work you do on screens. You have structured something so that you're less on them, and we've decided some things to drop. For instance, we could be spending a lot more time on Instagram or YouTube or something, and we've chosen not to do that. But, especially within our free choice screen time, deciding, is this something that's a part of my lifestyle or is it not? Do I read in bed or do I scroll the phone? Is the phone even in my room, or did I buy an alarm clock? Because those are still around, in case anyone didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a good one, Alison.
Oh, okay. Well, we've done 50. If you go back and listen to the other episode, you would have heard 50 great grandma kind of channeling wisdom sentences. Thank you ever so much for having the conversation with me, Andrew. It's been very enlightening to have you give me your thoughts on all of them and to engage you in discussion. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for starting the conversation. I think it's a really good one to be having, and each one of these could be its own complete episode, I think.
Yeah. It's starting to get dark here now. I suppose it's getting light where you are now.
It is.
Yeah,
I can
there we
see
go.
foggy clouds moving across the tops of the trees on the mountain outside. It's really beautiful.
So you are about to start your day, and I'm really kind of about to end my day. So
You're winding down.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody has, you guys are listening to this and you have further thoughts, you can, of course, drop them in the Discord, engage them in there if you're in there, or email them to us if there's things that come to your mind, or if you disagree, or if you have further reflections for them, then we do want to hear that.
Yeah, that would be lovely to read. Cool. Okay, well, I shall
go enjoy your evening with the boys. Are you guys reading tonight?
Yeah, we're still on Sherlock Holmes, The Complete Works. We've got about 10 hours left, I think. We've been reading it for months. It's just so good. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, cool.
Well, enjoy.
Thank you. Have a good day. Speak to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can join as a patron. Choose from various levels starting at $5. You can see what we offer at ancestralkitchenpodcast.com.
While you're there, check out our favourite books, supplements and kitchenware, or give a one-time donation.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
And if you know someone who would love our show, tell them about us.
You are helping to bring ancestral food wisdom into modern kitchens, changing the world one plate at a time.